Yo, what's going on, yo? I'm JB Hoops, and today I got my Big Board 4.0 post the draft lottery and the draft combine. Now let's just get into it right away with some honorable mentions. So the 10 guys you see on the screen right now are guys that I think have a chance of being drafted, but a distant chance. But in my opinion, they are definitely guys who deserve to be in the NBA and will be priority undrafted free agents for teams to sign on two-way deals. Now let's get into my top 70 prospects, starting off with tier 6 from guys ranked 70 to 54 on my Big Board. So starting us off at 70, I have David Roddy, the 6'6 junior out of Colorado State. I think I'm very low on him in comparison to a lot of other people. I get that he's an elite 3-point shooter, but I am a little bit concerned with the fact that he's 6'6 and he weighed in at 261. So he is definitely undersized for his play style, and I'm also not completely sold on his shooting efficiency, which is a big part of his game. Prior to his junior season, he wasn't even a respectable 3-point shooter. And then he kind of broke out in his junior season, shooting over 45% from deep for most of the season. So I'm not completely sold on that efficiency being sustainable. But I think with his skill set, he's definitely draftable, but for now I have him at 70. At 69, I have DOMINICK BARLOW, the 6'10 forward out of the Overtime Elite. He's a prospect I'm not too familiar with, but I've seen a little bit of his game, and he is quite impressive. He has nice touch, he's a versatile defender with a 7'3 wingspan. His shooting stroke is a little bit funky, but it's still pretty smooth. The flashes of self-creation are there. I think he dropped 19 points in the combine scrimmage, so that's promising. He also has great body control and is an excellent finisher inside. But I do think he is a little raw as a prospect, but the physical tools are definitely there, so I have him as the 69th ranked prospect. At 68, I have another guy who is probably a bit lower than I'd like to have him, but I have Michael Foster Jr. out of the G League Ignite. He's a 6'9 big man, and is pretty much an ideal modern NBA big. He's a good rebounder and shot blocker with a 7-foot wingspan. He's shown some ability to stretch the court out, hit some threes, and then more recently he's flashed some handling and passing ability. And I just think he has all the makings of a reliable backup big in the NBA. But there's just not a whole lot of separation between about 40 and 70 for me. So unfortunately for now, Michael Foster Jr. comes in at 68. At 67, I have Julian Strawther, the 6'7 wing out of Gonzaga. He's a great shooter, shot about 37% from 3 this season, has a lightning quick release, he can play defense, guarding both wing positions with his 6'10 wingspan, and then he also has the ability to make plays in transition, both for himself and for others. He was pretty efficient this season, shot a nice 67% at the rim, and an insane 61.9% on twos outside of the restricted area. So I think he'll definitely have a great chance of being drafted late in the second round, but for now I have him as a 67th ranked prospect in this class. At 66, I have HYUNJUNG Lee, the 6'7 wing out of Davidson. He's one of the best shooters in this class easily. He's a solid playmaker and has an all-around game. He can score on all 3 levels, play solid defense, he won't get hunted on that side. And I think he'll be a solid role player in the league who can heat it up off your bench. He's a little bit of a hard one for me to rank. He could go somewhere in the mid-second round, but for now I have him at 66. At 65, I have Orlando Robinson, the 6'11 junior out of Fresno State. He's another prototypical modern day big. He can stretch the floor, shot about 35% from deep this season. He can rebound and block shots, has a 7'4 wingspan. But I am a little bit concerned with his lateral movement. He doesn't move well in space, and he is a pretty below average athlete. He was pretty bad in the combine testing, as you would expect. But I think centers who can shoot in today's NBA are very valuable, so he definitely has a chance to be picked in the second round. At 64, I have Caleb Houstan, the 6'8 freshman out of Michigan. He did have quite a disappointing freshman season, but he showed he can be a solid spot-up shooter, knocking down 35.5% of his threes. He has good size, good passing instincts. He's flashed some shot creation ability, but for me, he was very disappointing in his freshman season, so for now I have him at 64, but the upside is definitely there. At 63, I have Walker Kessler, the 7'1 sophomore out of Auburn. He is an elite shot blocker, one of the best in the nation in college basketball, averaged 4.6 blocks a game. He does have a 7'4 wingspan, which probably isn't as big as I expected. I think he's going to be a great shot blocker in the league, and he did hit a few threes this season, but I'm not a big fan of his mechanics, and he did only shoot 20% from deep, so I think I'm a lot lower on him than the consensus, because I just can't ignore his bad tendencies to foul, and his issues moving in space. I think he's going to get cooked in the NBA guarding guards. But I definitely think he'll be able to block shots and be a lob threat. But to me, that just doesn't hold a whole lot of value in the league. So for now, I have him at 63. At 62, I have J.D. Davison, the 6'2 freshman out of Alabama. He's another freshman who was extremely disappointing. He's an explosive high-level athlete, super quick in the open floor, has a great first step and pretty good vision, but I think the concerns with his three-point shooting and decision-making are not to be overlooked. It is a significant issue and I do hope he goes back to school, but with the athleticism I can see a team picking him up in the early second round, but for now I have him ranked as the 62nd best player in the class. At 61 I have MATTEO SPAGNOLO, the 6'6 guard out of Italy. He's a great shooter, knocked down over 44% of his threes this season, has a nice handle and is a very solid playmaker. He is pretty foul prone and can be reckless with the ball, leading to a lot of turnovers, but I think with his size, playmaking and shooting ability, he definitely has a chance to be drafted in the second round. At 60 I have Julian Champagny, the 6'8 junior out of St. John's. He's a super skilled wing, can really put the ball in the bucket. He's a pretty good shooter, solid defender with a 6'10 wingspan. Although he probably did have a worse season this year than his sophomore season, but I think with his size, skill and overall game, he's definitely good enough to find a spot in the league. At 59 I have Moussa Diabate, the 6'10 freshman out of Michigan. Now in rethinking this might be a bit low. He was one of the best testers in the combine, had the lowest body fat, although that definitely isn't an accurate measurement, but also he was just amongst the leaders in almost every category at the combine. He's a versatile and high IQ defender with a 7'3" wingspan. He can switch on to guards, block shots at the rim. Then offensively he's a pretty good passer. He's shown some face-up ability, hit a few threes, and has a pretty good looking jumper. So by my next big board he might end up a little bit higher, but for now I have him at 59. At 58 I have Peyton Watson, the 6'8 freshman out of UCLA. Whilst he did have a very disappointing freshman season, the flashes of excellence were definitely there. He was very good defensively and has a 7'1" wingspan. He's also a pretty amazing athlete, the potential is there. He can handle the ball, shoot it, defend, he's athletic, so I can definitely see a team taking a flyer on him anywhere from the early second round on. Next up I have Trevion Williams. He's a guy who's definitely grown on me a lot. He's a 6'9 big man out of Purdue. He's a special passing talent, probably one of the best passers in this class. An excellent rebounder, has super soft touch around the basket. I think offensively he can be kind of a Draymond Green type, running dribble handoff action and being a playmaker from the mid and high post. He's not a great rim protector but measured with a 7'3 wingspan at the combine, so that's pretty impressive. And he looks to have trimmed down a little bit, although he did weigh in at 265, but he is pretty ripped. And if he can display consistent 3-point range, he's definitely worth taking in the second round. At 56, I have Max Christie Jr., the 6'6 wing out of Michigan State. He has great size, he's a good shot creator with a nice jumper. He was pretty solid defensively, another guy who had a pretty disappointing freshman season. His efficiency was pretty poor and he did really struggle to finish at the cup. But I think for a guy of his player archetype, there are definitely going to be teams willing to ignore the downsides and concerns and will just take him off his potential, size, and shooting upside. At 55, I have Andrew Nembhard, the 6'5 senior out of Gonzaga. He's a guy who I think is very underrated in this draft. He's an excellent playmaker, has a super high basketball IQ and is smart with the ball. He can shoot it from deep, shot 38% from 3 on over 4 attempts a game. And then on defense he's solid, can rack up steals, shot a very nice 42% in the mid-range. And if he was a few years younger, I think he'd be a first round talent. He was super impressive at the combine, dropping 26 and 11 in one of the scrimmages. So I think he's definitely a winner from the combine and a guy I think is worth taking in the second round. Now onto the final guy in tier 6, I have Jordan Hall at 54. The 6'7 sophomore out of St. Joe's is a versatile guard, a very solid 3-point shooter, and has excellent shot creation ability. He's also a very solid passer, averaged almost 6 assists a game, can handle the rock, and although he is very turnover prone, not the greatest athlete and struggles to get to and finish at the rim, I think he's still an excellent NBA prospect, so that's why I have him at the top of tier 6 at 54. Now onto tier 5, which is a pretty massive tier. I have guys ranked 53 through 28 in here. There isn't a whole lot of separation through these guys, so take all the rankings with a grain of salt. But starting it off at 53, I have DEREON SEABRON, the 6'6 wing out of NC State. He's an amazing athlete, he has a unique playstyle as a slasher, he can rebound like a big man, has point forward potential, I think he's an excellent passer. Although there are definitely concerns with his shooting, he's very hesitant to shoot and only shot 25.6% from deep. I think there's definitely a spot for him in the NBA with his athleticism and playmaking. He probably needs to put on some weight and is a little bit of an older prospect at 22, but is another winner of the combine. He scored 32 points in about 59 minutes and also tested very well, so I expect him to be a second round pick. At 52, I have Yannick Sosa, the 6'11" center out of the Democratic Republic of Congo. He's 18 years old, will still be 18 when the season starts. He's long, super athletic and mobile. The way he moves around the floor is insane. And I think he has elite defensive potential with his 7'5" wingspan. He's very raw offensively and very skinny, but I think a team will definitely take a flyer on him, maybe in the late first, if not early to mid second round. Coming in at 51, I have KEON Ellis, the 6'5" senior out of Alabama. He's an amazing athlete, one of the most NBA ready guys in this class. He's great at attacking the rim, has a nice handle, and then on the other side of the floor, he's a very intense defender with a 6'9" wingspan. He can shoot it from deep, shot a very solid 36.6% from 3 in one of the worst space situations. He tested quite well in the combine and should have a bright future in the league as a 3-and-D wing. He did weigh in at only 167, so he definitely needs to put on a bit of muscle to defend NBA guys. But I think the 3-and-D potential is there. He's going to be a great NBA role player, so I definitely think he's worth taking in the second round. Now, coming in at 50, I have Hugo Besson, the 6'6" French guard out of the New Zealand Breakers. He's an excellent shot maker, has a quick release and a confident shot. I think he's an underrated athlete, can play on or off the ball, and his measurements at the combine were quite surprising. I definitely didn't expect him to be almost 6'6" in shoes. He was one of the only prospects to measure a negative wingspan, but given his play style, I don't think it will matter too much. He's an excellent finisher at the rim, can finish with both hands, and I definitely think he'll find a role as a microwave scorer in the league. Coming in at 49, I have Jaylin Williams, the 6'10" sophomore out of Arkansas. He's an excellent rebounder, pulled down almost 10 a game. He's a great playmaking big, and then on defense he's versatile, one of the best charge takers I've ever seen, and has a 7'1" wingspan. He did only shoot 23.9% from 3, but if he can show teams he can be a consistent 3-point threat, I think he has a chance to be taken in the first round. But for now, with that outside shot still questionable, I have him at 49. Just ahead of him, I have KHALIFA Diop, the 7' center out of Senegal. He's a very good athlete, extremely mobile on defense. He can block shots around the rim. He moves pretty well in space. Then offensively, he's a pretty good passer. He fills the roles of a conventional center pretty well, runs the floor hard, and is a good role man. Then at the FIBA under-19s, he's also flashed some shooting and handling abilities. So whilst he definitely still is a bit raw offensively and has some decision-making issues, I think he's definitely an international big to look out for getting drafted in the mid-second round. Coming in at 47, I have Ryan Rollins, the 6'3" combo guard out of Toledo. He's an excellent scorer, averaged just under 19 points per game, and I think he can definitely shoot it a lot better than his percentages show. He can play make, he's great at getting to and finishing at the cup, and then on defense, whilst he is a little undersized at only 6'3", he has a pretty crazy 6'10" wingspan, so definitely makes up for it there, and he can rack up steals. He's a guy who's gotten a lot of hype recently and for a good reason, but for now I have him at 47. Coming in at 46, I have Alondes Williams, the 6'5" senior out of Wake Forest. Now this is a little bit lower than I'd like to have him. He is a great scorer and playmaker, one of the best passers in the draft. He's also extremely athletic and a great finisher, but I have just dropped him a little bit because I am definitely concerned with the shooting. He only shot 28% from 3 and 69% from the stripe. And there is also the fact that he will be 23 on draft night. But I think he'll be able to come into the league, get rotational minutes as a backup and be really solid in those minutes. But for now, I have him at 46. At 45, I have Jabari Walker, the 6'8" forward out of Colorado. He's another guy I think is pretty underrated. He's a great rebounder and can defend 3 through 5. He can stretch the floor. He knocked down about 35% of his threes. He definitely still does have a ways to go with his discipline in terms of bad turnovers and bad fouls. But I think he has the talent of a first round guy. So if any team can pick him up in the second round, that would be a great pick. At 44, I have Vince Williams Jr., the 22-year-old senior out of VCU. He's a lefty shooter with a super smooth stroke. He did not get an invitation to the draft combine, which I was pretty shocked by because of just how good at everything he is. He can defend, he has a 7-foot wingspan. I think he'll be able to defend 2 through 4. He can play make, average 3 assists this season. He's a knockdown shooter, and I think he could be an excellent 3-and-D role player in the league. He also has a nice dribble pull-up in his bag. He's got all the moves, and because he's 22, I think he's going to get overlooked in this draft. But I think he'll be a great value pick anywhere in the second round. At 43, I have the 6'5" freshman out of Duke, Trevor KEELS. Now, Trevor KEELS is definitely an interesting one. I probably expect him to go back to Duke, given a first round promise doesn't seem likely, but I do think he is a first round talent. Offensively, he's very good in the pick and roll. He can play make, score in the mid-range, and shoot the 3. I think he's a bit better than his 31% shows. And then defensively, he competes and he's very solid, and he's built like a football player. I think another year at college will definitely help boost his stock, and he could be a top 20 guy next year, but if he stays in this draft, I have him as the 43rd ranked prospect. At 42, I have John Butler Jr., the 7'1" freshman out of Florida State. He can really shoot it from deep, shot over 39% from 3 this season. He's huge and really lengthy, has a 7'2" wingspan and great shot blocking instincts. I think he's a great prospect. He can defend on the perimeter, he moves really well laterally, and his length is stifling. And then offensively, he can handle the ball a little bit, and I can definitely see the upside of a guy who can grab and go off the glass, as well as score off the bounce a little bit. I can definitely see him going back for his sophomore year if he doesn't get a first round draft promise. He does definitely need to bulk up to hang with NBA bigs, but the upside is just too great to ignore, so for now I have him at 42. At 41, I have Kennedy Chandler, the 6'1" point guard out of Tennessee. He's another one I find difficult to judge because he is very short and short players don't really last long in the league. But I think if he can shoot it to the level he did towards the end of the season, he's going to have a long career in the league. He has a 6'5" wingspan, which makes up a little bit for his lack of height. He's super athletic. I think he was the highest vertical at the combine. And he's a very good playmaker and can get to the rim with his super quick first step. So for now, I have him at 41. Alright, we're into the top 40, and starting us off, I have Josh Minott, the 6'8" freshman out of Memphis. He's an explosive athlete with excellent intangibles. He didn't really get to show a whole lot of what he's capable of at Memphis. Didn't get a whole lot of PT, but the flashes were pretty spectacular. He's an excellent passer, has great passing instincts, can really defend all 5 positions. He has a 6'11" wingspan, and then offensively, he's a great offensive rebounder. He runs hard in transition, he can be a lob threat, he can work as a roll man. He couldn't really shoot it in college, only shot 14% from 3, but in seeing some of the recent workout clips from him, his form appears to have improved throughout the pre-draft process. So if teams buy into his jump shot, I can definitely see him being a late first round pick, but for now I have him at 40. At 39, I have Gabriele Procida, the 6'7" wing out of Italy. He's a sniper, knocked down over 38% of his threes. He can shoot it in any way, he can spot up, shoot off movement, and he even threw in a few step backs and side steps, which was pretty impressive. He's also a crazy athlete, jumps super well off 2 feet, way faster and more athletic than you'd expect. He's a very solid defender with good length and quickness. I think he's going to be an amazing role player in the league, fitting into that 3-and-D mold. So for now, I have him at 39. At 38, I have Justin Lewis, the 6'8" sophomore out of Marquette. He's someone I definitely think is a draft sleeper. He can pretty much do it all on the court. He can shoot. He's an excellent rebounder. At 6'8", 235 with a 7'3" wingspan, he has a huge frame and possesses the length to defend 1 through 5 pretty much. He moves well laterally. He's a beast at finishing inside. And whilst he definitely needs to improve as a passer and ball handler, and he does have some athletic limitations, I think he's going to be a steal in this draft if anyone can get him in the mid-30s or beyond. At 37, I have Wendell Moore Jr., the 20-year-old junior out of Duke. Now, I think he's a guy who's super NBA ready. He can shoot it, defend, play make, and really just give you a little bit of everything on the floor. And I think he is overlooked because of the fact he is a junior, despite only being 20 years old, younger than sophomores like Keegan Murray, and only a few months older than freshmen like TyTy Washington. He can create for himself, create for others, get to the bucket. He's super athletic, smart with the ball, and he'll really help out whatever team drafts him. So for now, he's at 37 on my big board. At 36, I have Patrick Baldwin Jr., the 6'10" wing out of Milwaukee. He's super talented offensively, has great size and mobility. I think he's going to be a really good shooter, despite shooting under 27% from 3 in college. I think he definitely needs to go back to college, transfer somewhere else, maybe Kentucky, and just elevate his draft stock because it has plummeted this year. I love his shooting mechanics. He's a pretty solid passer. He does need to improve as a defender and athletically. He tested terribly this year at the combine, had like a 23-inch vertical. So I think he definitely should go back for another year, because coming into the year he was seen to be a top 5 pick by a lot of people. But I think he is too talented to let slip too far, but I can see him slipping into the second round, which is pretty unfortunate. But for now I have him at 36. At 35, I have Jake Laravia, the 6'8 junior out of Wake Forest. He's an extremely well-rounded prospect with great size. He can shoot it from deep, knocking down over 38% of his threes. He can play make a little, defend and rebound. He did pretty well at the combine and did end up sitting out the second day. So that could mean he got a first round draft promise, which I wouldn't be surprised by because he is an excellent prospect. But I just have a few minor concerns with his athleticism and how they'll affect him defensively. But for now I have him at 35. At 34, I had Harrison Ingram. He did just pull out of the draft and he is returning for his sophomore season, but I cannot be bothered reordering all of the people after him, so he's just a placeholder at 34. At 33, I have another late season riser in Dalen Terry, the 6'7 guard out of Arizona. He has great size and feel as a 6'7 guy who can play multiple positions. He can pass, shoot it from deep, knocking down over 36% of his threes. He can defend and has a 7'1" wingspan. He can get to the bucket and pretty much just do everything you'd want. He competes hard on both ends, is really skilled, and I think he'll be a great pickup for anyone who can get him after the lottery. But for now, I have him at 33. At 32, I have Christian Brown, the 6'7 wing out of Kansas. I think he's going to be an excellent role player in the league. He has a very good, well-rounded game. He's an excellent athlete, very intense defender. He can shoot it, play make for others. I think he does have a ways to go in terms of his self-creation ability. And he was also one of the only guys to test with the negative wingspan. But it didn't seem to affect him defensively at college, so I don't think it will really in the league. So for now, I have him at 32. At 31, I have Christian Koloko, the 7-foot center out of Arizona. He's a guy whose place on my big board definitely fluctuates a lot. Some days he's all the way down in the 40s, others up as high as 30. But I just see the insane athleticism and shot blocking ability with a 7'5 wingspan. He can give you everything you'd expect from a center. He's great on the offensive glass. He can shoot free throws, knocking down about 74% of them. And then in the combine, he was also pretty impressive. I don't weigh combine performances or testing very much, but he did shoot very well in the combine drills. So I'm sure NBA teams will be intrigued by his shooting ability, because I definitely am. So for now, I have him at 31. Now coming in at 30, I have Kendall Brown, the 6'8 freshman out of Baylor. He's an amazing athlete, probably the best athlete in the class. He's a versatile and switchable defender. I think he'll be able to guard 1 through 4 with his 6'11 wingspan. Offensively, he is quite limited, but he has good vision and passing instincts. He's amazing in transition and an excellent cutter. I think he does need to be more willing shooting the 3. Because his mechanics don't look too terrible, I just think he needs more confidence to shoot them more. But he does obviously lack that self-creation ability teams look at. So that's why some might view his ceiling as a role player rather than a star. So for now, I have him at 30. Just edging him out, I have Yon Montero, the 6'2 point guard out of the Overtime Elite. I'm very intrigued with how teams will value him. I could see him getting taken in maybe the 15 to 20 range, but he also could slip to maybe the mid-second. But the talent is undeniable. He's a creative scorer, one of the best off-the-dribble scorers in the class. He's excellent in the pick and roll. He's flashed his passing ability. He's impressed at every level he's been at. I think there will definitely be concerns with his defense, but I think offensively he's too talented to let slip past the first round. Now on to the final guy in this tier, and I have Ismael Kamagate, the 6'11 center out of France. He's super athletic and mobile, a great rim runner, excellent as a roll man, super efficient. He sets good screens, has soft touch around the basket, especially with his right hand. And then on defense, he's extremely versatile, can defend in the pick and roll, block shots around the basket, switch onto guards, he's pretty quick laterally, and has a 7'5 wingspan. Also, his jump shot does look nice. I think he hit a game winner or game tying shot, which was pretty impressive. He obviously didn't get to showcase his 3-point range, but I think he will eventually be able to shoot the 3. So I definitely view him as a first round talent, so have him ranked at 28 on my big board 4.0. Now we're on to tier 4 with prospects ranked 27 through 15. So coming in at 27, I have Terquavion Smith, the 6'4 combo guard out of NC State. He's an amazing shot creator with a really tight handle. He can shoot it from deep, get buckets in a hurry, then on the defensive end he can hold his own. He does struggle a bit finishing at the cup, and his 165-pound frame definitely does not help, but he's a crafty scorer and I think he could be an elite 6-man in the NBA and potentially even more than that. So that's why I have him at 27. Bryce McGowens comes in at 26. The 6'7" freshman out of Nebraska is a skilled scorer, an absolute bucket with excellent size. He's an elite athlete, can really jump out of the gym, and has excellent body control when attacking the rim, but he also has good touch on his finishes. He is a pretty streaky shooter, only shot 27.4% from 3 this season, but he has a smooth stroke with good mechanics and a quick release, so I think his percentages will increase in the NBA. Where I'm most concerned about him is defensively. He is very inconsistent on that end in terms of his effort and awareness, but he does possess the size and physical tools to be a good perimeter defender. I think he's going to be an amazing shot creator in the league, and that's why I got him here at 26. Just out of him, I have Blake Wesley, the 6'4" combo guard out of Notre Dame. He's another big-time bucket getter, has the ball in a string, and has great offensive creativity. I think he's amongst the best self-creators in this class. He can get to the bucket, pull up from mid-range, and create behind the arc. He also has a 6'9" wingspan and is very capable on the defensive end. So I think with more assisted and catch-and-shoot looks in the NBA, his percentage will definitely increase. And two-way shot-creating guards are very valuable in the NBA, so I have him at 25. At 24, I have national champion Ochai Agbaji, the 6'6" senior out of Kansas. He's an explosive athlete, the backdoor lobs are crazy, and then he's also an amazing shooter on super high volume. He can shoot it in any way, he sprints around the court to get to where he wants to and quickly fires off his 3. And then on defense, he's an intense defender with a 6'10" wingspan and great strength. He's quick, smart, and switchable, and I think he has elite 3-and-D wing potential. Agbaji's also a pretty solid passer and just makes the right play. I think he's a really good player, but his stock is probably hurt a little bit because of the fact he is 22 years old. So I think teams will view him to have a lower ceiling. But I think he's going to be an amazing two-way player and fill a lot of needs on whatever team drafts him. At 23, I have Leonard Miller, the 6'10", 18-year-old out of Canada. I'm pretty sure he's the youngest prospect in the class, and that definitely does not hurt him. He has a 7'2" wingspan, and although he is very raw as a prospect and we don't have a lot of film to go off, the physical tools and unorthodox talent are definitely there. He can put the ball on the floor, has a nice bag of moves and counters, he moves extremely well around the floor, and his touch is just insane. His jump shot probably does need a little bit of work. It's definitely unorthodox, he's kind of sideways when he shoots it. But I think with a lot of time put into him, probably a lot of games in the G League, I think he can develop into a really good NBA player. Guys with his size and skill set are a very hot commodity. And the fact that he's also just 18 years old elevates him a whole nother level. I can definitely see a team reaching for him in the late lottery, but for now I have him at 23. At 22, I have EJ Liddell, the 6'7" senior out of Ohio State. He's a prospect I think is severely underrated. He's built like a football player, can shoot it from anywhere on the court. He has great touch, finished at almost 70% at the rim, and then shot an insane 47.6% in the mid-range. On super high volume too. He can pass, and then on defense he's super versatile and an elite shot blocker. He's also a very good athlete, posted a 38-inch vertical at the combine. The only downsides with EJ are the fact that he is 21 years old, which isn't super old for a senior, so that shouldn't hurt him too much. And obviously he is undersized with only 6'7", but he can shoot it from deep, pass the ball, and defend 3 through 5. So I think he's going to be an excellent value pick if a team can get him in the 20s. Just ahead of him I have his Ohio State teammate, that being the 6'6" combo guard Malachi Branham. He's super efficient, an excellent shooter and mid-range scorer. He can get to the cup, and he's just super composed offensively. He does an excellent job at getting to his spots and creating for himself. And then on the other side, he's a really good point of attack defender. I think he does need to improve his handle to be able to beat NBA defenders off the dribble, so he's not forced to constantly make extremely difficult shots. I think also improving athletically would go a long way. But I just think he's such a well-rounded prospect at a young age. He has to be a first-round pick, and I can see him even being a lottery pick. But for now, I have him at 21. At 20, I have Jalen Williams, the 6'6" junior out of Santa Clara. I just made a video of draft sleepers, and he is on it. His draft stock has skyrocketed over the last few weeks, and for a very good reason. He can shoot the ball, score on all 3 levels, and then he's an excellent playmaker as well. He has a solid all-around game and a 7'2" wingspan, which is just crazy. He was efficient from all over the court whilst being the main target defense is locked into. I think in the NBA he'll have the ability to fit into any system because he is so good at playing on or off the ball. I'd really love if Atlanta got him. Him and Trae Young would go crazy. Got a few other guys I'd like Atlanta to get, but for now I got him at 20. At 19 I have Marjon Beauchamp, the 6'7" wing out of the G League Ignite. He's another guy I think is constantly overlooked because he isn't too flashy and offensively doesn't really excel at any particular thing, besides the obvious being his finishing. He's an excellent interior finisher, he gets to the bucket with ease, he's super athletic and has great touch around the rim. But I think defensively is where most of his value comes from. He's super versatile and has a 7'1" wingspan. He has the foot speed to defend on the perimeter, but also the IQ and size to be an effective off-ball defender. His main weakness is his shooting ability. He shot just 24% on the showcase and 30% on the tour. But when he played in college last year, he shot 40% from 3. His jumper looks fine to me, so I think he'll be a capable shooter in the league. And I think he's going to be a steal for whoever gets him. At 18, I have Ty Washington, the 6'4" combo guard out of Kentucky. He's an elite scorer in the mid-range, has an amazing floater, can shoot it from deep, playmake for his teammates. He's excellent with the ball in his hands, doesn't turn it over much, but he also is an amazing option off the ball. Then on defense, he's a pretty solid on-ball defender with a 6'8" wingspan. He is obviously limited due to his underwhelming athleticism, but I think that'll be more of an issue offensively with his struggles to blow past good defenders. And then defensively, it could hurt him in terms of staying in front of good athletes. But he's a Kentucky guard, so we know how that goes. And I think he's becoming pretty underrated at this point, so I got him at 18. At 17, I have the 7'2" center out of Duke, Mark Williams. I think he's an elite conventional center. He rebounds well, blocks shots with his 7'6.5" wingspan. He runs the floor extremely hard. You can put him in the dunker spot and he'll throw everything down. He definitely needs to improve as a ball handler and passer because he does struggle to make basic passes and can't handle for more than a few dribbles. But I think he's an NBA ready center that will be able to immediately give any team impactful minutes. A team like Charlotte definitely could use him. He's also 7'2", which was pretty surprising. Didn't think he was going to be that big. He's a monster inside on both ends, and I genuinely think he has a chance to be a lottery pick. At 16, I have Ousmane Dieng, the 6'10" wing out of the New Zealand Breakers. He struggled tremendously to start the season, was pretty terrible, not even looking like a first round prospect anymore. But over the second half of the season, he caught fire and was really impressive. He shot 35% from 3 over his last 12 games, and I think that's more of an indicator of how good he is offensively. I think he has a ton of upside as a shot creator with crazy size. He can score in ISOs and has a super deep bag of moves. The way he's able to create space is just amazing. He can handle the rock. His playmaking is amazing as well. And then defensively, he was solid all season, has over a 7-foot wingspan, and very good off-ball instincts. His touch is really impressive. I think he's going to be a really good NBA player. He might take a few years to develop, adjust to the league, but I wouldn't be mad if any team took him in the lottery. He definitely is that type of talent. At 15, I have a kind of similar guy to Ousmane Dieng, being Nikola Jovic, the 6'11" wing out of Serbia. He's super skilled offensively, he's excellent as a shooter, he can handle the rock, create for himself or for others, and I just think he has elite shot creation potential at his size. Defensively, he measured with a 7-foot wingspan at the combine, so that might help him a little bit, but his defense definitely will be an issue in the NBA. He'll need to fall to a team that knows how to hide him and knows how to make sure he doesn't get hunted on that end. But I think with the NBA team, he should be able to improve to at least be a passable defender. So I definitely think there's a chance someone takes a swing on him in the lottery. But for now, I have him as the 15th ranked prospect. Now we're on to tier 3 with prospects ranked 14 to 10. It's a pretty small tier. I just think these guys are a little bit better than the guys below them, and they're probably closer to the guys in tier 2, but I've separated them into their own tier. So starting us off at 14, I have Jaden Hardy, the 6'4" combo guard out of the G League Ignite. He's an elite shot creator, in my opinion the best shot creator in the class. He's really shifty with his handle and has a deep bag of moves. He's great at creating space to get his shot off because he isn't the most athletic guy, so that definitely helps him. He's also a great shooter. I don't know the stats with me, but I'm pretty sure he shot 40% on catch and shoot looks. Then I also think he's super underrated as a playmaker. He can operate in the pick and roll. He uses the threat of his pull-up super well. And then defensively, he has a 6'9" wingspan. So I think eventually he'll be fine on that end. I think some people are heavily overhating him and underrating him because they just saw the first few weeks where he struggled tremendously and just choose to ignore his improvements over the season and his special talent. He definitely needs to improve defensively and with his shot selection, but I don't think that'll be too difficult for him, so that's why I think he's easily a lottery talent and have him at 14 on my big board. At 13, I have Jeremy Sochan, the 6'9" freshman out of Baylor. He has great size and an NBA frame with a 7-foot wingspan. I think he's one of the best defenders in this class. He's insanely versatile and has a super high IQ. He can rebound the ball, guard on the inside and on the outside. Then offensively, he has a nice handle. He's great at finishing inside and in the mid-range. He can hit the 3. I think he will be better than 29% in the league. Obviously, that's where he needs to improve as a consistent shooter and self-creator, probably being more aggressive in the NBA, and also to improve his free throw shooting. That was pretty poor, but I think he's a lottery talent, and a team that needs his defense would definitely take a swing on him in this draft, so that's why I have him at 13. At 12, I have Bennedict Mathurin, the 6'6" wing out of Arizona. He's another excellent athlete and amazing shooter. I think he's quite similar to Ochai Agbaji in terms of his movement shooting, but for some reason Mathurin just isn't very good as a spot-up shooter. I don't know why that is, but I think he'll improve in the NBA. But I still think he can be a very high-level 3-and-D wing. He isn't the most consistent defender, but for sure has the physical tools to be a great defender. He has a 6'9" wingspan, so that should help him on that end. He can finish at the cup, is super athletic. I think he needs to improve as a ball handler. That's the main weakness for him, because at this point he's not much of a self-creator and really struggles in the mid-range. But he's an excellent athlete and great 3-and-D wing. I'm a little bit lower on him than consensus, but I have him at 12. At 11, I have Keegan Murray, the 6'8" sophomore out of Iowa. He's a bucket at the college level, averaged 23.5 points per game, which is crazy. He's an agile and smooth athlete, can rebound, defend, shoot it, has great touch around the basket, and amazing footwork. I'm also a bit lower on him than consensus. I think most people want to see him go to the Kings or the Pacers. I think that is way too high and not good value for either of those teams. I think defensively he's a bit iffy. He doesn't really have the size to defend the paint, and then also doesn't have the speed to guard on the perimeter. He is also an older prospect, about a year old for a sophomore, at 21 already. I just think he's too high on other boards. I feel like some people just look at the stat, but if you look a little deeper into it, the majority of his buckets came in the post, and he was also in a system that kind of ran through him, which undoubtedly won't be the case in the NBA. So I think he'll be more of a role player than a star player like he was at Iowa. So for now, I have him at 11. Now onto the last guy in tier 3, I have Johnny Davis, the 6'6" sophomore out of Wisconsin. He's an excellent shot creator, can score on all 3 levels. He's amazing in the mid-range, and then he's also a beast on the defensive end. He's a really intense defender, and I think he'll be able to guard 1 through 3. And then he did also shoot just 31% from 3 this season, but I think his numbers will improve in the NBA. Because he was the guy in Wisconsin, had a lot of usage, so I think with more catch and shoot looks, as well as less defensive attention, I think he's going to be really good in the NBA. He has a quick and high release with nice mechanics. I'm all in on him, so I've got Johnny Davis coming in at 10. Now we're on to tier 2, where I have prospects ranked 9 through 3. Starting us off at 9, I have AJ Griffin, the 6'6" wing out of Duke. He's an absolute bucket. I think he's extremely underrated. Now, I have dropped him down a little bit since my last big board because there is the obvious concerns with his foot speed on defense and athleticism overall. But if you forget about all that for a second, he's an amazing shooter. He shot 45% from 3, which is crazy. He's really good at creating for himself, creating space, scoring in the mid-range, getting to the rim. He's super efficient in all areas of the game, even without being an amazing athlete. He has a high IQ. Defensively, I think he's alright. There was some games where he was really struggling, but when he was switched on, he looked fine. Has a 7-foot wingspan and a really strong frame. And I am slightly confident that he will regain his high school level of athleticism. And if he eventually gets to that level, he'll be an elite player in the NBA. A two-way monster, and he'd be in the conversations for pick number 1. But as of now, I have him at 9. Coming in at 8, I have Tari Eason, the 6'8" sophomore out of LSU. He's a super strong and athletic combo forward. I think he'll be able to play the 3 and the 4, and he has a very solid all-around game. He's a versatile and switchable defender, plays really hard on both ends, has a crazy 7'2" wingspan, great foot speed, is adept at picking up steals and can block shots. I truly think he's one of the best defenders in this class. He can really do it all on that end, and that's why I'm just so in love with his game. He's a monster in transition, throwing down crazy dunks. And I also really like his upside as a creator because I really do like his handle. He has all the moves. I do think it is a little loose, but I think if he's able to tighten that up a little bit, he'll be able to get to where he wants on the floor. And then it just comes down to his shot making ability, which I think he'll continue to develop and be a crazy NBA player. He finishes in the paint like a 7-footer, he's super athletic, he has pretty good touch. Whilst I think his 3-point form is a little bit weird, he did shoot 36% from deep and he shot about 80% from the stripe. So I'm pretty confident in him being a very solid shooter in the league. I think that'll translate. And he's probably one guy I'm way higher than consensus on, so I have Tari Eason at 8. At 7 I have the 6'5" combo guard coming to the league out of high school, that being Shaedon Sharpe. He's a crazy athlete, super bouncy, has a strong build, and then offensively he's super smooth, has all the handles, can pull up, step back, he takes super long strides to get to the bucket, and then his shooting mechanics are just beautiful to see. He can pass, I think he has the upside of a versatile defender, has a 7-foot wingspan, is pretty quick laterally, and has the athleticism to make some eye-popping defensive plays. Obviously there isn't a lot of gameplay to go off, and he hasn't really played competitive basketball in a long time, but I still think he has a very good chance to be a top 5 pick. His athleticism and offensive ability, as well as potential to be a great defender, that type of stuff doesn't come off it, so for now I have him as the 7th ranked prospect in this class. At 6 I have Dyson Daniels, the 6'8" guard out of the G League Ignite. He's one of my favourite prospects. I've had him pretty high for a while and now I've finally decided to just put him up there and I've got him at 6. He can play the 1, 2 or 3, has a 6'11" wingspan. I think he can guard 1 through 4. He looks to have improved as an athlete. He's been throwing down some crazy dunks recently. On defense, he's one of the best guard or wing defenders in this class, if not the best. Then offensively, he has excellent vision. I think he can be an excellent secondary ball handler if needed. Otherwise, I think he would be fine to run the show as well. He's very good at finishing at the rim and has an amazing floater. He has a really high basketball IQ. I think he can be a second option on a championship team. He's just that type of guy. Elite on both sides of the ball, super smart. Measured in at 6'7.5". His form is super clean and I think he'll be a very solid shooter in the league. Apart from aggressiveness, he doesn't really have many downsides at all. And I think he's a really good prospect in this draft, so that's why I have him at 6. At 5 I have Jalen Duren, the 6'11" freshman out of Memphis. He's built like Dwight Howard, 6'11", 250, one of the youngest guys in this class. He'll be 18 when the season starts. He does everything you'd want a center to do at an extremely high level. He has a 7'5" wingspan, he can block shots, but I also think he's super versatile as a defender. He's switchable, can defend in the pick and roll, is only 18, so I think he'll only get better on that end. But then there's also just more to his game. Offensively, he is a bit raw, but I think early on he'll be able to get force-fed buckets and just improve over time. I already love his passing potential. He makes great reads out of the short roll. I think he definitely needs to improve his touch around the basket and from the free throw line. He is a pretty poor free throw shooter, but he did hit a few jumpers this season and they looked pretty clean. I think he has the potential to expand his range to the 3-point line. His jumper is smooth. He's so young. I just think he has so much upside. I just think he has such a high ceiling that it would be crazy if a team let him slip past 10 like I've seen on some other boards and mock drafts. So I have Jalen Duren at 5. At 4, I might have a little shocker. There's been a lot of speculation surrounding the number 1 pick, with a lot of people believing the Magic should take Jabari Smith Jr., the 6'10" freshman out of Auburn. I can definitely see why. He's an elite shooter at 6'10", and then defensively is amazing as well. He's just a workhorse on that end. He's an elite perimeter defender, and then he's also a very good defensive rebounder. I just do have some concerns with him offensively. I just don't think he has the star upside of a guy like Jaden Ivey or Paolo Banchero. Because he does struggle to create space off the bounce, his handle is pretty poor, and whilst he is pretty young, he still has time to develop it. He just is really stiff with his dribble. He also did hit a lot of tough shots this year at college, but I'm more concerned with the fact he's having to take such difficult shots at the college level when NBA defenders will only be more physical, strong, quicker, athletic, longer. So I just have some concerns there, but the talent is definitely there. He definitely has a chance to be a number 1 pick. Although I personally wouldn't take him number 1. I can see why a team would, but for now I have him at 4. At 3, I have Jaden Ivey, the 6'4" combo guard out of Purdue. He's an elite athlete, the best athlete in this class. I just don't think anyone else in the class has the type of burst Jaden Ivey does. He's super quick, can jump out of the gym, throws down some crazy dunks. He's great at getting inside, where he can either finish or dish it out to one of his teammates as he forces the defenses to collapse. He's impossible to defend when he gets downhill, he's just going to dunk it on you. He's also amazing in the pick and roll, pretty solid at finding his bigs, and anytime he's given an advantage, he takes it. And then on defense, he's very intense, has a good frame at 6'4", 200 pounds with a 6'10" wingspan. He moves very well laterally as you'd expect as he's such a great athlete. But I just think the star upside is there. Jaden Ivey went so crazy this season despite playing in a system with absolutely zero spacing. Either had TREVION Williams in the paint all the time or Zach Edey, who was 7'4" and does not move. Now there obviously are concerns like there are with any prospects. He does struggle a lot in the mid-range or on any type of shots that aren't at the rim or the three-point line. I think his shooting is definitely overhated. I think he'll be a very solid shooter in the league. At minimum a league average three-point shooter. But what I find more concerning is his in-between game. NBA centers are more physical, taller, move better. So if they're able to effectively position themselves, I don't think at this point he has a floater to counteract that. But it's something I definitely can see him developing, and if he does, he's going to be a superstar. So that's why I have Jaden Ivey at 3. So now we're obviously down to tier 1. These are my top 2 prospects in the 2022 NBA draft. I think these two have probably solidified themselves, but I can see Jaden Ivey sneaking up. He's definitely right on the cusp. But for now at 2, I have Chet Holmgren, the 7'1" freshman out of Gonzaga. He's insanely skilled, the best defensive big in this class. He's elite at defending any coverage in the pick and roll. He's an amazing shot blocker, averaged almost 4 blocks a game. He can even guard out on the perimeter a little bit. He moves his feet well. And then offensively, I think he has it all. I don't think he displayed at Gonzaga anywhere near the level of offensive player he can be, but he did show his excellent shooting touch. He shot 39% from deep. He can pass, he's an elite finisher inside. Literally the only concern with him is the frame. He is obviously very skinny at 7'1", 195. I don't even know if he's 195, but it hasn't stopped him being elite for 20 years of his life. Nobody's asked to defend Joel Embiid. I think he's going to be fine in the league. He'll probably need to pack on a bit of muscle, but pretty much so does everyone. So as of today, I have Chet Holmgren ranked as my second best prospect in this class. So that obviously means my number 1 player in this class is Paolo Banchero, the 6'10" freshman out of Duke. I think he should be the number 1 pick in this draft. I don't really think it's that close. He's NBA ready, a dominant shot creator, 6'10", 250, built like LeBron. Offensively, he has everything. I think people are overthinking it with him. His defense is not that bad. He's not to the level of Jabari or Chet, but it's not like he's going to be exposed and played off the court. I think a lot of it is effort related, which you'd expect would go up in the NBA, so it shouldn't be too much of an issue. I also think he's a better shooter than he looks like. He shot a solid 34% from 3. I expect that to go up in the league over the next few years. He can dribble. He's an exceptional passing big man. He's extremely well-rounded, an amazing shot creator. I think people are overthinking him. He's my number 1 prospect in this class. And that finishes up my Big Board 4.0. That was a long ass video, probably another 50 minutes I would guess. We'll see when I edit it down. Thanks for watching if you watched the whole video. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed, liked the video, turn noties on. Comment what you think down below. I'm probably going to do another mock draft in a few weeks. Probably another big board when all the withdrawals come out. And we'll see how that goes. Stay tuned for the content, like the video. JB Hoops.